Sitcoms aren't a thing that I've covered crazy often on this channel, and for the most part there's a valid reason why. Disregarding a ton of the Nick sitcoms, which seem to make up at least a good 50% of my friends' childhoods from the looks of it, a lot of them can be a really mixed bag of quality. There's stuff that personally, for me, actually make for a really great time, like the Jamie Foxx show on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, guilty pleasures like Liv and Maddie, a story for another time, and then there's stuff like the Michael J. Fox show, which, in retrospect, isn't really bad per se, but was honestly just kinda boring and harmless.
Since we're both here, can I get you to sign an autograph? My uncle's got Alzheimer's.
I've actually got Parkinson's.
Like I said, a mixed bag of quality. However, there does exist the one golden boy in the sitcom department that'll make anyone online even associated with me question why I love it so much, and that would be Family Matters. Created by William Bickley and Michael Warren and premiering on September 22nd, 1989, Family Matters follows the adventures of the Winslow family, consisting of Carl and Harriet Winslow, their kids Eddie and Laura, and Grandma Winslow. Together they go through your typical sitcom plots while also trying to go through the motions of daily life. That doesn't mean that was all the show had. For its time, it covered even heavier issues, albeit in a more sanitized fashion, such as racism and gun violence. But the reason I like this show so much comes from a certain character, Stephen Q. Urkel, the clumsy, nerdy boy next door who constantly tries to get the attention of one Laura Winslow, much to Carl's regret. But something from this show made me realize something about this certain character. You see, dear viewer, after watching a ton of this show with some friends, shout out to Hotep Rangers, certain aspects of Steve Urkel as a character, including the actions he takes, especially with the people around him, would be considered a big no-no in today's world. What do I mean by this? Well, I propose that Steve Urkel as a character contributed to simp culture. And as crazy as it sounds, I think I have a pretty good case for it. What is simp culture, you might be asking? Well, let me show you. Say you're on a Twitch stream hosted by your average female with too much free time on her hands. Say you find this one viewer on every one of her streams, giving her large donations from the hundreds to even thousands. And this host finds it in her best interest to do whatever the person asks for, whether it be verbal thanks or anything else. Boom. You just found yourself a verified simp. This is kind of new terminology in terms of the internet, but it's existed for a long time, and it can apply to a real person you know, or even a fictional one. And that's why I personally think that Steve's actions do have a sort of old school variant of these traits, and why they kind of sour the look of the show. So with all that said, let's get on with our case. But first we gotta change our location. Much better. So come with me, as I show you the evidence of a character being turned into something he shouldn't be, not through his own actions, but from ones outside of them. This is Steve Urkel, toxic simp culture creator. At first, Steve shows up as a guest character, later on being a major supporting one, as he joins the Winslows on their many misadventures. But there are a few things we can attach to him as a character. So what do we know about Steve Urkel? Well, he's an insanely smart super genius, building all sorts of high-tech devices like the Urkelbot and Urkpad, a cloning machine and more, most of which would be celebrated marvels of technology. He's clumsy as hell, contributing to the bumbling, geeky character that the series paints him as, with a lot of his slapstick antics being targeted towards him or the many unsuspecting people nearby. Unable to read the room, easily recognizable voice, the way he dresses, all these make Steve Urkel what he is in the show. So much so that the popularity of the character skyrocketed into Urkelmania, just like the Turtles and Bart Simpson. Ads, cameos in other shows, meeting several members of government, even getting his own cereal for a time. He was on top of the world, to a point where the actor Jaleel White was even contracted to act as more characters from the Urkel family, including Myrtle Urkel and OGD. But despite his popularity, his character was meant to be timid and meek, with these traits giving him something the audience can enjoy and maybe even latch onto, playing the role as a sort of unlikely protagonist. But all these things lead to something sinister too. Throughout the series, we see Steve's crush on Laura develop over the next 9 seasons, as the two grow into young adults, even becoming friends. However, Steven's behavior kind of raises some red flags looking back, a lot of which really don't sit right with me personally, such as pet names.
Steve, stop faking. I'm not faking, Love Muffin, I'm hurting here.
Pushing boundaries.
Marry me.
No.
We get taste.
No.
We go steady.
No.
A date.
No.
A kiss.
On the hand.
On the lips.
The forehead.
Deal.
Putting her on a pedestal, and a lot more. Sure, these were all played for comedy, but whether you laugh or not doesn't stray away from the fact that his actions are a little too on the comfortable side. Don't get me wrong, Steve has some good qualities and has used them to help the Winslows many a time, such as Women of the People, where he assisted Laura in securing her role as a student body president, or in Number One with a Bullet, where Steve ends up saving Carl from a dangerous criminal that intended to kill him while he was in the hospital. These positive traits do shine through the character, but therein lies two problems that the show had with Urkel. Problem 1. The show had a habit of more or less making Steve look like the victim in a lot of the episodes, somehow shaming the other characters into thinking they were in the wrong. A good example of this is in the episode It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Urkel. Not only does this episode begin by making Steve look like a straight up stalker by openly waiting for Laura to be outside the store, but it has Steve not even make the slightest attempt to apologize to Laura, instead making joke after joke. And so when Laura gets upset at him, it's apparently her fault and the show guilt trips her the whole time. That's really dumb. Like a magical kind of dumb. And problem 2, the later seasons intended to not only push Steve's bad qualities, but the other characters that Jaleel White played too. Remember when I said that the popularity of the character led to more Urkel-like characters getting on the show? That doesn't exactly mean that they were good. Trust me when I say that I didn't enjoy any of Steve's cousins like Myrtle Urkel. And I know for a fact my friends hated OGD and only referenced him for a joke. The reason I mention all this is because these are the qualities that would eventually lead to what the show would become nearing its end, and the terrible things that would come from it.
Watch Family Matters.
Looking good.
A whole week long. Weekdays at 5:30 on 19.
I'm coming home to you, baby.
The unbridled lust that burns deep within the hearts of these two destined souls, the intense heat that fuels the fervor of these...
All right, I think we get the point.
Sorry. Family Matters. Weeknights at 6:30 on the WB11.
Let's get down with our bad self.
The fourth season brings to life probably one of the most engaging and also really frustrating parts of the series, a love triangle between Steve, Laura, and a new character Myra. Her first appearance in the episode A Thought in the Dark already shows parts of Urkel's character that really makes him unlikable. Those traits that I mentioned before are cranked all the way to 100. I mean, the guy's walking around in disguises, distracting Laura's date by telling him his car's on fire, and then rightfully gets shamed by the rest of the cinema.
Calm down. I don't have to take this. I'm going home.
The rest of the episode isn't too great either. Just when you think it's going well, he goes out of his way to stop a concert, publicly embarrasses Laura, and confesses that he'll never stop going after her. What continues is episode after episode of Laura trying to get Steve and Myra together. And it works! They're great together. Couldn't be happier. But then the show takes a turn for the worse. The team behind Family Matters make it glaringly obvious that everyone thinks that Laura has feelings for Steve, and that Myra is a straight up stalker. This isn't even flanderization at that point, it's destroying a character to fit your own narrative. They changed the sweet girl Myra was to this in order to make Steve and Laura endgame, and it's awfully done. And not to mention the entire mess that was Stefan Urkel, only there to make people worse. He works as a one-time plot device, but they brought him back again and again for the express purpose of bringing Laura to the conclusion that she likes Steve. And I mean, episodes would be spent on Stefan Urkel. And the worst part is that it did nothing but bring the worst out of Laura and Steve, especially with the whole transformation chamber. Here we have Steve take the biggest risk and turn back into Stefan for someone who doesn't even love him at that point, even ignoring Myra's entire plead. Even though it's played for comedy, something about it doesn't sit right with me. Even when Myra's character was rewritten to be almost completely different, it makes what Steve does during this time look justified to the audience when it shouldn't be. It's mean-spirited as all hell, and doesn't feel like the Family Matters I enjoy watching. But that's not all for this video. It appears I have a witness for the crimes of Steve Urkel. So, I'd like to bring one black geeky girl to the stand.
The love quadrangle between Steve, Myra, Laura, and Stefan is the worst arc in the whole series. The show went from a sitcom about a middle-class black family values to an irritating, uninteresting soap opera with a a tiny bit of black family values here and there. Laura, Steve, and Myra are all in the wrong. I'm not defending any of their behaviors whatsoever. However, I sympathize with Myra the most. No, that doesn't mean I'm defending her actions. I'd hate how Myra is written, from being the nice girl who fell in love with Steve to becoming Steve's crazy stalker. Myra is the only girl who loves Steve for Steve, even devastated after he literally altered his DNA for Laura, a girl who never liked him in the first place. Full on yandere, complete character change within 4 episodes. In scenes where Myra kisses Steve unconsensually, mentions that she invades his privacy, watches him while he sleeps, the fact that the audience were laughing at these very questionable moments is very uncomfortable. Steve can't even breathe around a cute girl without Myra believing that the girl is trying to steal her man. Myra's bad writing exists to make not only Laura look like a good woman for Steve by comparison, but also so Steve and Laura can become endgame. Myra is definitely a wasted potential, and it's sad to watch this amazing black sitcom slowly turning into a romantic drama series. Thanks for having me, Geek. I had fun watching and talking about family matters with you.
Even with everything I mentioned, I still love Family Matters. The characters, the stories, the moments where I found myself laughing either with my friends or solo at the antics of the show, those will always be my favorite parts of it. Sure, it's corny, cheesy, and really dated, but that's kind of what made it a perfect sitcom for me to watch. Steve's character was done dirty, Myra's character was done dirty, and Laura's character was done dirty. There's no erasing the later seasons and the faults of the writers, I know that. However, I'd like to appreciate the good that came from the show instead of what it became, and Family Matters will always still be there for a nice laugh and a good time for me. And really, that's all I could ever ask for.
Looks like it's gonna be a great day today to get some fresh air like a stray on a straightaway. Hey you, got a light? Nah, a Bud Light. Early in the morning, face crud from like a mud fight. Looky here, it's just the way the cookie tear. Prepare to get hurt and mangled like Kurt Angle rookie year. The rocket scientist with the pocket wine list. Some even say he might need some psychiatrist. Doom, are you pondering what I'm pondering? Yes, why would the darn thing be wandering? She's just a foundling, barely worth fondling. My posse's on Broadway like Mama, I want to sing. Mad plays the bass like the race card. Villain in the place to break shards and leave a face scarred. Groovy dude, not to prove to be rude, but this stuff is like